Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome to this special transmission where I have a very special guest with me tonight as well. His name is David Morgan. Normally, you can relate to him by Owen Spring and sharing all this amazing information in which he decodes ancient civilizations and correlates all that information that he decodes with the biology and also in a very spiritual way, all these ancient teachings. So now you know perhaps why he's with me tonight, because we love decoding. It's one of our passions. So I will tell you a little bit about David for the ones who are not familiar to him. So David is a researcher of comparative mythology, focusing on anatomical allegory and the psychological and energetic metaphors hidden in the legends, architecture, and artwork of our ancient ancestors. He's an experienced practitioner of energy work and an interested investigator of the narrow path of the mystery schools. David believes an ancient initiatory practice could help humanity attain their full potential, a potential once disclosed to the young people of antiquity in their coming of age rituals. So having said this, welcome. Welcome, David.
Hi, YssaH.
Happy to have you here.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here with you. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for being here. I know that it's quite early for you. It's at 3 a.m., right?
Yeah. Yes, the God hour, isn't it? Or the witching hour. I think it's called the Brahma Murti in the Vedic tradition. The hour of the gods.
That's why you were also saying that it would be a perfect time to meet, right?
Yeah, it's a good time. I normally get up around about 4 a.m. anyway. So this isn't too early for me. Yes, it's a good time, I think.
Well, and I do think that for people, it would be nice to know why you wake up that early, and it's related to the practices that you deliver, right?
Yeah, well, yes. So I've sort of brought everything down to a very basic level, like similar to I think the ancients did. And so sleep became a big part of it. Diet, sleep, the dream world. So I sort of attuned everything to my practices. So getting to bed early, getting up early became an important part of it. And yeah, that's it really. It's just getting to bed as early as I can, getting into the dream world as early as I can, and then getting up before sunrise in the summer as well is going to be important. Yeah, I think it's something which has always been done over the ages. They've to get up before the sun, and to get up early is important, and to spend as much time in the dream world as well as possible, because it was important, I think, that connection. They seen it as a connection to the gods and a connection to the ancestors and the afterlife.
Would you say that you have found divinity in discipline?
Yes, well, absolutely. I mean, it depends on your take on divinity. Of course, I look at things from a more physiological and energetic perspective. But yes, connecting to the divine, when we think of it in whichever way we approach it, really, whether we look at it as something metaphysical or connection to our own nervous system in a heightened, more increased manner. Yes, the disciplines definitely help. So reducing our distractions, because even when we are sort of overeating or eating the wrong things, we are distracting our body, more or less. It's one way of looking at it. But yes, it's all an important part of connecting with the goddess, with God, with the gods, with the divine, with the great oneness, whichever way you want to approach it. The energy traditions, the diet, our sleep procedures, and the rituals we follow before going to sleep and after we get up from sleep. It's all important as far as building our connection to the divine or to the goddess, whichever way you want to look at it.
Yeah, I agree, because if we see discipline as coherence, then we are going from micro to macro. We are being that coherent field that actually, and why would discipline relate to coherence? Because when we know what suits us well, then we shall pursue that. We shall daily, every day, try to do our best to connect with those practices that actually enable the space for us to blossom in that way. And as you were mentioning, like before fully going and diving into Egypt, into ancient Egypt, you were mentioning, like how all this nowadays, all the distractions that there are, in ancient times, I'm not saying that there was no technology. Mostly if we were talking about Kemet or ancient Egypt, there was a lot of technology. The thing is that the technology had a very a specific purpose aligned to the spirit, and here is the other way around. Not all the technology, but most of the technology is actually amplifying the abysm in between our spirit and our body, our state of awareness. So yeah, it is. I agree. It's very important, that the discipline, and even we can see that in ancient teachings, in the mysteries school, what were initiations about? It was all about like really like hardcore rituals that would take you to go beyond your limits. And you can only go beyond your limits when you face your fears, when you face your weaknesses, when you face everything that actually distraction is trying to disguise from you. In many ways, distraction applied.
I absolutely agree with that completely. The ancients were well involved with it. That was the whole practice. As far as I am concerned, that's what they were trying to do. They were trying to connect with their higher self, with the goddess, with the divine powers, whichever way we want to look at it. And all of their practices, all of the ascetic practices, whether it's fasting, energy work, meditation, cold exposure, chanting, the whole thing, sleep rituals. It was all set up to bring them in line with the divine. And yeah, I completely agree with you. They would. That's why you have many of the ascetic schools in the mystery traditions would go and isolate themselves, from society. It would be a quiet place, all the way through the mystery schools in the different ascetic traditions. This is the case. They would isolate themselves to go and do their practices to enable them to become more connected to the divine. And I think, thinking from our perspective and a modern perspective, that is going to be more attainable for people as distractions become less and less, and as people start to discover more the truths about what our ancient ancestors were recording in their allegories and myths and legends and stories, fables, traditions. I think this is going to become more and more important, and it's going to gain more attention. And as like our modern healthcare as well becomes more in line with these ancient practices, it's going to become more vogue for the young people. They're going to become more interested in what the ancients were teaching and the way they did things. It's happening now, as far as I'm concerned. But and that's what's given me the confidence to sort of come forward with it as well. But yeah, it's all about getting in touch with the higher self, and wherever that leads for every individual. Some people it will lead to the divine, unraveling, the great awakening. Some people it may just help them increase their health, their well-being, and their cognitive functioning. So it's going to be, and again, from my perspective, it's going to be it should be a positive experience for everybody, no matter what, on what level. And I think it will be, as long as it's entered upon correctly and with devotion and with understanding.
The devotion to oneself. You reminded me of this huge message that has been coming for the past few months about the importance of putting in really exploring what is our mission here, and of course this has been for a while, but when it comes to how do you develop your mission in your daily life basis, and then you see all these people working in jobs that they don't like at all, and then I wonder first how grateful I am for doing what I love to do, and second thing is, if we really generate that insight of why we are here for, then you would see that it's not doing something that you don't like. It's actually having a job, a work that will take you at a more intimate level with yourself, and not the other way around. Really these spiritual questions, what am I doing? Am I getting closer to myself? Is what I am doing really making myself more intimate with my multidimensionality? Am I just losing my time? What am I doing of my life? And what, this is the real job, your practice says, well, of course, anyone can choose any job that they want, and it's equally valuable. But when we're talking from the path of awareness, that's also a job. It's a daytime job, and all the night as well, getting to know oneself. And for me, that is not only to be taken as for leisure time, being really more serious, because that's where we are heading to. That's what the filter will come to. Who spent time going deep within, and who don't. Who didn't.
Yes, I think automation is going to allow people. There are obviously negative, and I get the both sides of it. The more conspiratorial side of it and the negative side, but there's also a positive side where it's going to free up people's time to get to know themselves and do things. Now it's difficult for people. Perhaps they got 2-3 children, working, commitments, financial commitments. But I think in the future this is slowly going to be faded out, and people are going to find themselves with a lot more time, and they're going to be able to look back into these ancient practices of their ancient ancestors. And I think in the future the West and the East are going to become more balanced, and it's going to be found out that the West was just as spiritually and energetically involved as the East was. And that's what a lot of my videos and a lot of my writing is about. So I can appreciate that. And from a personal perspective, I sort of stumbled on most of my discoveries because I was like sort of put out of work through illness, and so I was searching for these things. So I had the time for to go into these practices in depth, to go into these sort of disciplines. It was important for me to do it, and so I was heavily involved and attached to these ancient practices and why the ancients were doing it, and it all sort of unfolded for me, with my research, my discoveries, and my health. So it was all, and I think in a sort of a lesser way, this is what is going to happen in the future, where people are going to be through the sort of wellness and the biohacking community, that's going to grow, and the connection between the ancients and the disciplines of the ascetics, the tantrists, the different approaches from all the different traditions, the therapeutai, the Taoists, the Egyptians, the Norse, and the Druids. They were all involved with it because they all wanted to live longer. They all wanted to promote life. And so, yes, it's all, I think it's all going to come out in the future. It's all going to build from here, hopefully.
So would you say that one of the main purposes of all these teachings is attaining a longer life? And of course, the quality of that life.
Yeah, lifespan and health span, I think, was very important, especially to the pharaohs of Egypt. That's what they were all about. The mummification, the duat, and the afterlife. It was about energy, fertility, virility, especially for the pharaoh. So life, and you had to be healthy and it was all based on that, as far as I'm concerned. Their diet as well, they were heavily involved with their diet. And I think it was the case, you can go to China as well with the Yellow Emperor and the emperors there. You can go to the alchemists around the Mediterranean and the north, where they were all looking for the elixir of life and the I've forgotten what it's called now, the magical pearl, the alchemy, the philosopher's stone, sorry. People think it's just about turning gold, turning base metals into gold, but it isn't. It's about the nervous system on an anatomical level. It's about the nervous system and awakening the nervous system. That is the philosopher's stone, and you attain the philosopher's stone physiologically through certain practices, especially in ancient times. But I'm going to go into that in later writings. But yes, it was about longevity, of course. You can think of the sort of average lifespan back then for the average person was not very old at all. But yet we have some of the great philosophers and great thinkers living into their 70s and 80s, and this is well recorded. Why? Because they were following these practices. They are finding bodies with perfect teeth. Why? Because they were following these practices. They knew what diet to follow. They knew what energetic practices to follow. They knew how to approach life in general. There's all sorts of ideas surrounding, how far back did this wisdom go? Was it left over from another civilization, which I touch on, which I think it was. But either way, I think, yes, the ancients were well aware of what the body required. And the funny thing is that when we reduce our intake of distractions or like poor diet or the things that we use to comfort ourselves, when we reduce all that down, what happens is our body sensitizes. So like your taste buds and things, your sense of smell increases because you're reducing. It's obvious. It's an obvious sort of scientific sort of approach, really. When you reduce your input, your senses naturally improve. Yeah, and so it was obvious for the ancients, I suppose, who are hypersensitive, in a good way, and they obviously become more aware of this. And again, I think this is another reason for the isolation in their groups of the therapeuti, and the different groups who went into the mountains or went into the different locations and sort of isolated themselves from the other communities.
Yeah, that's a very interesting point, because if you ask yourself or anyone watching this transmission, how could you apply that hermit mode within this reality where you have a million things to do, where the fraction of time, like the hours a day that we have decreased onto 16 hours instead of 24? And then, like, where's your family, your work, your job? How would you do? And that's the beauty of it. How I see it, when we get to actually play with time. And that's something that also was present in the ancient teachings. I mean, I have decoded it. They reflected in many forms, like the cube, like also going deep within, like what David is talking about, knowing how to handle our own energy, because then you are actually using your multidimensional body to go ahead of time and bringing that consciousness here, or like bring deliver like the techniques that you want to do. For instance, what David was talking about, like waking up early and so forth. You will find out that within your multidimensional body, there is the power actually to have all that energy to do those things. Perhaps at some point you will find a little bit conflict, like have a conflict with the gap of time, but the thing is that you will have energy to do. And at some point, when you get to really dive into your multidimensional body, we are capable to bend energy and have an extension of time. However, it requires focus. It requires commitment, not just saying, okay, bam, done. Unless you already have grown a huge coherent field in between your mind, your word, and your action, then you can create as you speak. However, if not, because again, all this reality actually in like as how David was mentioning, the ancient uses and costumes, there the priority there would be the evolution. And even in the distribution of the tasks that everyone in the community had to fulfill, it was not a society like we see today. It was far from that, because it was based on pillars of truth, of simplicity, what is truly needed, and not creating things that we don't need, because that also is a lot of energy leak, doing things that are not even necessary. And the more simple that we become, and I do believe that's also a key for the hermit, what I was asking, like we can ask ourselves. And for me, one of the keys that show to us being capable to go into that inner space, into that inner cave, even if we are relating and interacting with a community, is finding the simplicity within that 0 point energy.
Yeah, it's I relate everything back to the nervous system. So the whole connection with the higher self and everything comes back to the nervous system. And what the ancients were doing was they were they were isolating themselves into their communities, like the monasteries and the different, cases wherever in the world it may be. But they were isolating themselves from the community, which were trying to survive basically in the ancient times, because they were having to tend to the crops or go hunting or do whatever, the things, getting their water clean, keeping their daily life going. But these groups were isolating themselves, and then working on the spirit. And I think that they were the catalyst, for, religion, and for the mystery schools, for the traditions, and it grew from there. And obviously some of these people were living longer lives. And so to a lot of the normal people who were just living up till their 40s or 50s, perhaps, a lot of these people were looking at these adepts and looking and seeing, well, how, this guy's in good health at 60 or 70 or whatever. How is that possible? So, this was how a lot of the veneration and awe was built along the wider community. But as far as nowadays, again, I think this is going to be a slow sort of progress into the realization of how important our ancient religions, traditions, and faiths and practices are, and it wasn't just some sort of airy-fairy sort of, wishful thinking or a trick, to trick the people into believing this. Just, it did become that, and these things do happen, obviously, and we can go into like the idea of like the progress of civilization and why that is important as well, with timescales involved and things. But it's it comes down to, I think, from the modern perspective, that it's slowly going to come back. The realization that these things are important is going to be a slow progress as well into it, but it is happening quite. And it's the internet, and the modern technology which is allowing our access to all of the information, and the access to the sort of health and wellness community, which I think is going to marry and allow people to make steps forward. And the automation of things is going to give people more time. And obviously the young people are going to start demanding that they are allowed to access and investigate their own potential and the potential of their own nervous system. And I think this will align with the release of certain forms of automation, which is going to free people's time, which is going to, it's not going to happen straight away, and people are going to struggle. My age and stuff, I'm like 45 this year, are going to sort of, this is the fight, isn't it? And the struggle between like, is this automation taking over? Is it a good thing? We're going to lose a lot, of our freedom and independence. And, or is it, from my perspective, it has to be, I think we need to try and balance it, it have to be careful, but we also have to, sort of embrace it and use the time to better ourselves.
Yeah, definitely. Now that you were talking about is the sacredness in everything, making everything sacred. And actually another way to get to handle time, because we're now covering this topic, when you do what you love, and a specific frequency alchemy happens, that you're creating so much coherence that regardless whether if you're overstaying, everything aligns around you, and I do believe that that's also a path, like part of the bridge that is being crossed, starting to reconnect and put more focus and intention, not only intention, actually action, to the things that we love, to see how that alchemical process of aligning everything around us, because then we become the axis, and for instance, that was about the ancient teachings and the initiations, like how can you actually go and face the fear of swimming with crocodiles if you do not acknowledge and embody your power?
Yes, it's it's this is about as well. It's about difficulty. So this isn't about just sort of enlightenment and awakening. A lot of people need to go through difficulties and dangers in their own lives, to realize and to bring themselves down to that very basic level to enable them to then go forward. I can speak, through experience about that, about my health concerns and things, which led me onto this path. And it's the same for the people who are starting the journey. It's very difficult to begin with, and their difficulties in life may lead them to this path. And I think for the ancients as well, and many of the people who joined these communities, that was the case. The people who isolated themselves. I think a lot of these people went through great difficulties and great dangers, and they survived, and that's what led them into these certain schools and paths, and that's where they were taken in as well.
Yeah.
But yes, it's about rebirth as well. So a lot of my work, a lot of my research is based around the idea of rebirth in different traditions, from the Taoists to Egypt, Horus to Christ, to the rebirth in certain Celtic and Gaelic and Norse traditions as well. And that's the rebirth of awakening and realization that there's a higher aspect to our lives. And again, it depends on your approach, whether it's you're connecting your nervous system to the higher sort of energies around you, or whether you're connecting to your higher self, or to God, or the goddess, or to the higher powers, whichever way that you want to look at it.
Yeah, I agree. And by saying sacredness is that part, of course, not in a religious form, nor even divinity, it's about that point where you reach the honor that it is to connect with yourself in many ways and relate to the universe in many ways, through people, through events, through yourself, in many, many ways. You have been mentioning several times the nervous system, and I agree. I see, and I have also tuned into, through my remembrance and part of my research, the importance of not only the nervous system, yet many parts in the body, and that how it all relates to the capability of, for instance, you were saying it, we have our nervous system. When we go beyond the boundaries, the mental boundaries of the flesh, we're capable to see that we're interconnecting from our brain, from our nerves, all the way to the memory network, to the neurons of the universe. And then we are already communicating with them. The thing is that we do it at a conscious level. And that level of bliss, you can be doing anything, even taking out the garbage. If you are playing with that action, where you're capable to feel the breeze that is coming through your face, to feel and listen the plastic bag in your hands, and then seeing that all of that is just information, and that actually the more that you connect at a conscious level with that plasma field, then the was, the scepters, the ancient scepters, for the ones that doesn't know what the was is, those are the we won't be showing images tonight, because then it would be more like a class. We will have more encounters with David. But like, if you also want to see more of the information that he shares, you can go to his YouTube channel. It will be in the description below this video. And also you can go to my web page and so forth, mostly in my Facebook, where I have also all that information. But anyway, there are different tools that, for how I perceive it, they have a scientific side of it. Like, they really existed, physically outside. Yet they were a reflection of something, because where is someone picking up from the information from the universe? And the universe resides within us. So all the way that the neurotransmitters, the superconductors, the 0 point energy, coherent state, and so forth function, was through the research of how our biology works. We even have in walls of temples, in all ancient civilizations, but now talking about Egypt, about the sperm, about encoded symbols that people said, oh, this is a beautiful flower. And what they were representing was the cellular replication, and so forth. So,
Yeah, it's I mean, for me, all of the ancient traditions were about awakening the nervous system and building that electromagnetic sheath around you. I mean, that's scientifically proven now. A heart gives out a electromagnetic field around us. They detect it. We have the ECG, it's electromagnetic in nature, our energy. Our mitochondria in our cells produce bioelectricity and biophotons, light and energy. So this is all what it was all about. In Egypt, I mean, Egypt is a hub. It's a seed, from my perspective. It's one of the original civilizations where other civilizations sort of came from and learned from. And it's all in all throughout Egyptian sort of mythology, iconography, symbolism. Their allegories is full of this physiological teaching. So what they were doing was they were trying to look and trying to enhance their connection to the divine, I would say, through the increased or the enhancement and increase of their own nervous system. And so it goes through. I mean, I haven't got images, but I can see if I can do this a moment. Sorry, if I just disappear for a second.
Sure.
But what I do is I take photos, and so I've got this here. So this,
the
one sector is what the ankh is holding there. So the ankh, is an anthropomorphic picture of the ankh, which is on Egyptian temples and pillars. And so here the ankh is holding the was scepter, and the was scepter is like a long scepter, but it also has been found in its shorter, like 6 to 8 inches long form. So what I am suggesting in my videos and my research is what they were doing is using the was scepter as an acupressure tool, especially for the shoulders. And so the ankh here is symbolizing the human body, and the shoulders, the crossbar represents the shoulders. And so by the ankh holding the was scepter onto the crossbar or the symbolic shoulders of the ankh, which represents life as well and the life force, what they're saying is the ankh, the was scepter is a tool to allow us to better apply pressure and access these sensitive energy centers. And this isn't just made up as well, because these energy centers are recorded in the Vedic Mama energy point system and the Nadi channels from the Vedic, the Indian and the Hindu energy tradition, and it's in the Taoist energy work traditions. And what you'll find as well is some of the energy points on our shoulders, our scapulae, which are our shoulder blades, and the clavicle, they're quite difficult to reach, and they're quite difficult to maintain for any amount of time. So the was scepter is, from my perspective, an energy tool to help people, especially as they grow older, like we was talking about longevity. And so the pharaohs would have been well aware, for me, they were masters in energy work. They weren't just masters in architecture, megalithic building, mummification, and mythology and symbolism. For me, it just makes sense. They were obviously in charge of their own energy, their own bodies. It was important to them. So the was scepter, I think, was an energetic tool. This is what I make an argument for in my videos and in all of my writing. And furthermore, I'm going to support these ideas with some other findings, which are going to be, which are only going to increase the weight and help support these ideas. But the was scepter also, it has a prong, a two-forked prong at the other end. So I'll show again.
Yeah, exactly.
So at the bottom, it has a two-forked prong. And so what I suggest that is designed for is accessing, because it's also found in the longer length, and it's more commonly shown as a longer sort of staff. So in that form, I suggest that it is used to access the energy centers between the feet, between the metatarsal bones of the feet, which are really important for an energy work system, because the feet you ground, so the energy goes down into the ground when you're
Yeah. Yeah.
when you're awakening the nervous system. And when you're awakening a nervous system, it can be overpowering, it can feel overwhelming. And so what you need to do is circulate the energy to increase the flow, so it's not stagnating or getting stuck in certain places, especially the heart. First of all, you circulate the energy into your periphery, get the energy circulating and out into the energetic sort of electromagnetic field that surrounds us. Whether you want to look at that metaphorically or physically, that's up to the individual. But after that, what you need to do is, when you've filled that, so to speak, metaphorically speaking, you ground the energy with your intention into the ground. So the feet were very important. So the was scepter and the two-forked prong may have been used to apply pressure between the metatarsal bones, opening up the feet, energetically speaking, and then allowing the energy to circulate more easily. And it's the same again. This would be particularly important for the nobles and the adepts and the pharaohs who were gaining in age and losing the flexibility. So yes, that's the was
Yeah.
scepter.
Yeah, that's a beautiful and very powerful correlation to the was scepter. Thank you, David. To that I will add that the was is also known to be the device, like literally the device that they would use to handle the serpents or the snakes.
Yeah,
That's where the head was for, to pinch the serpent.
that's
It
it.
couldn't move.
Yeah,
So now if we relate that in a more extensive way, we know that
allegory.
the serpent is the energy. So it's
Yeah,
about mastering the energy in many ways, like going from within, capable of our own energy through our nervous system, through our heart, through our brain, because they used all these devices also for activations in the brain at an energetic level to
yeah,
open up pathways that would connect the epicenter of the brain, the eye of God, or commonly known as eye of Horus,
Eye of
right
Horus. Yeah,
directly with what, which is that intellectual gateway that is just a reflection of our neurons, the circuitry of our neurons mirroring into the stars. So that's how also they would leave the body. You were also talking about the astral body, the dream body, and so forth. And for instance, once you have mastered that at an like a real level, an energetic level as well, but outside, can you imagine how they would use also those tools to manipulate energy?
yes,
That they would be as well as with the ankh, creating all that black oils and so forth. You know, Imagine generating that. Not only imagine, because to some extent we're already experiencing at a very humble level. Imagine doing that in our own body at a full potential. It's like that's where we go simple again. Like evolving is actually less complex and more simple. Even the most sublime and elegant formulas in physics or in life, in wisdom, the simpler, the better.
yeah, absolutely. I
So
agree. Yeah, it's I think the quantum sort of world is proving that now. That it's proving the ancients were right. And on a simple um, level, to bring it back to sort of the physiological teaching as well. It's about connection and connection to the great oneness, and so it's about the one energy. The ether or the pneuma or the chi or prana, the same energy running through the whole system, the body and the universe. And as far as like the YssaH as well, used for, in their allegories, it was used for catching serpents. But we can relate this to the Kundalini serpent. The Kundalini serpent of the
as well.
Vedic traditions is, from my perspective, and I think from the perspective of the Egyptians, is the urius. They just show where the Vedic and the Indian show it coiled at the base of the spine in the sacrum, which is the sacred bone. The Egyptians show it at the forehead, so they're just showing it at the other end. The urius is shown at the forehead because that is ultimately the end location of this energy. So once you've conserved and circulated and risen the Kundalini energy up the spinal column, it manifests in the forehead. That's why the Indians have the bindi spot. And
Yes.
what you feel is a pressure. You start to feel a pressure build up in the sinuses of your forehead, and it's important to keep the tongue to the roof of the mouth when you're practicing this. But yes, so the Egyptians, where the Indians showed the Kundalini serpent coiled in the sacrum at the base of the spinal column, the Egyptians showed it in its full awakening as the risen cobra or the urius at the forehead of the pharaoh. And the pharaoh is the individual. Once you've mastered your nervous system, you are the master then of your own land, of your own kingdom, which is you, your body, your electromagnetic sheath. And the YssaH is a tool to help us do this.
And even the crowns, like Lower and Upper Egypt, one is showing the Turkish seat, where like and the Upper Egypt crown represents the pineal gland.
And the third ventricle as well, I think. Corpus callosum is shown on it. The Atef crown. I think his name is Brad something. Who he was I can't remember his name. It's a German guy, but it's on Magic Egypt. He really goes into detail there about the brain anatomy symbology of the Atef crown, the third ventricle, the corpus callosum, the pituitary gland, the infundibular stalk is the urius of the head of the pharaoh on the ram sphinx, which line the avenue to Karnak. And the brain, the ram's horns, the hemisphere of the brain, and the brain stem.
Yeah, that's the fornix. That's the fornix.
Yeah.
I have been decoding that for a while, and even Hathor, the Neter, Hathor, is the shape, like the cow, is the shape of the bulbus rachidius or the medulla oblongata. When you turn it upside down, you have the shape of a bulb, even with the horns being the olfactive conducts, the disc in the area of the gland. So even in the crown, in the upper crown, they show the interconnection in between the pineal gland and the third eye, but mostly connected to the ventral striatum, because in the ventral striatum is where the major epicenter for the sensorial area, so like the sensorial neuronal pathways are, that part of the cortex, is the one that has the most the neurons with the most relation to the sensory part, because actually they interconnect with the part just with the olfactive conducts and the just before the chiasma optic or the optic chiasma, and interconnection with the upper palate And those are energetic points. Even, like even when you interconnect the 9 chakras, they direct precisely into the intersection of the brain where the eye of God is, which is the interthalamic adhesion and not the pituitary gland,
Yeah.
that gateway in between both hemispheres. Because you mentioned the corpus callosum. I do believe that that's like the is the plan B for the optimal connection that we can have in between our brain hemispheres,
Yes, and the corpus callosum as
and
well
yeah,
is the filter between the brainstem and the diencephalon and the cerebrum, the higher brain. So it's like the connecting point, the corpus callosum. But it's interesting as well that you mention Hathor, because Hathor, her name means the house of Horus. And so I think her hieroglyph as well is Horus, the falcon, in a enclosure, and so and you connect it
yeah,
to the brain, which means like and when you're awaken your nervous system from the Egyptian perspective, what they relate that to is you're awakening the Horus principle within your side inside yourself. So you're reborn. So you start off as Horus and you are sacrificed, and then you are, metaphorically speaking, and then you are reborn as Horus. And then this
like
relates to the
like
brainstem. The
Yeshua, the
Horus,
Christ.
the hawk, is the same shape as the brainstem. It awakens the brain, connecting to the higher powers, which is the cerebrum. And so all of this is connected to this idea of awakening, reawakening, the great awakening, a rebirth within all of the ancient traditions. But the Egyptians were just, masters at it, as far as I'm concerned. And like with the interthalamic adhesion as well, it's important to remember. Like I've got a video about it representing the eye of Horus. So a lot of people think the eye of Horus is the pineal gland or the pituitary gland, but the actual pupil, when you look at a sagittal section of the
Exactly.
brain, human brain, the actual
Yeah.
pupil of an eye, because the ancients were experts in pattern recognition as well, and so the actual pupil of the eye, when you look at it, is the interthalamic adhesion, which joins the two hemispheres of the thalamus, because the thalamus has two hemispheres, like the brain has two hemispheres, the cerebrum.
Yeah.
And so when split, it looks like an eye. And either side of the thalamus, so at one side, at the front, we have the pituitary gland, which is on the infundibular stalk. And so that's the forward part of it. And then at the back of the thalamus, we have the pineal gland, which is attached through the pineal stalk, which is also called the epithalamus. And so the thalamus is the center, and the interthalamic adhesion is the very center of the thalamus, which connects
Exactly.
it. When it is
Yeah.
split, it looks like a pupil of an eye. So yeah, sorry, I'm going on a
Yeah.
bit too much there.
Yeah. No, I'm happy because I also show this and teach this in my courses, because I do believe that based on my experience and what I've outloaded of all these teachings is that know the exact order of the information. Otherwise, we don't get it fully right. And for instance, like, yes, saying the eye of Horus is the pineal gland, and then you're not aiming at the right point. And I do believe that when we communicate with our own body, like telling our own pineal gland, hey, what's your frequency? Okay, I'm tuning into your type of frequency. Okay, so now we start to, it's a relationship. We're having a relationship with every form of consciousness in the universe. So the more that we get into a relationship with every in our body, then that will respond to us. And that's how I achieved most of my activations, by knowing how my body functions and giving orders even at percentages. Like right now, I want to go out of the body, so I will just leave 20% within my body, and the 80% I will project it somewhere, and then doing a very specific breath work, and knowing how to handle energy. I just want to say about what you were mentioning on the eye of Horus, or eye of God, that just in between the interthalamic abduction, you have the septum, and the septum is one that is actually generating theta waves. And the theta waves is now people like they use it for vision. It's remote viewing, to remember things. Like it's how the hippocampus
Vivid
encrypts
dreaming as
the
well,
memory.
right? And vivid dreaming and things like that. I think it's involved with that also. And it's
Yes.
about as far as Egypt is concerned as well. I think it's about uh, building the car body, right? I mean, I'm no expert on
Yeah.
Egypt. I'd like to
Exactly.
say that. I'm no Egyptologist, but I have gone where my research has taken me. But I think the whole sort of uh, connecting with these Horus principle and building the nervous system, the bioelectricity through certain practices is about building the car body. And so that is what the Egyptians sort of were talking about in relation to the energetic works in life, but also it follows on in death. So by building your car body through life, you enhance it to such a degree that on death, then your car body can go on to the afterlife or into another body. And this again is a part of the tantric practices of the Buddhists. It's a part of the Taoist tradition, and I think it's a part of the reincarnation traditions of the Druids and the Norse, the other animistic traditions. So this is about, again, building up your nervous system to such a degree that you become, far more sensitive, far more in tune with your natural environment. You get
Mm.
better dreams, better vivid dreams. You get more lucid dreams and connection then to the um, to the to the dream world and to the other world, as the ancients called it, especially in Welsh mythology, which I am interested in because I'm from Wales. But yeah, every tradition, I can see it in every tradition. Their attempt to
Yeah.
build a system to in order not only to live longer and healthier, but also to connect to their natural environment and connect to the ancestors, to the other world, to the gods.
So now, how about sugar that takes off all the cover nerves of, that's what the sugar does. It dissolves progressively the coat that the nerves have, and that's why you see mostly the kids that are hypersensitive. When they eat a lot of sugar, you see them like if they were high. They are high, not like
Yeah,
if they were.
yes,
They are high on sugar. So, of course,
it's bad news.
again, touching the distraction, all those distractions that come in many ways, like even food, candies, and so forth, that is decreasing the level of connection that we can have with our nervous system. And we could go at man, we could really mention many things that are distracting, from this sacred
Sugar is one of the main
connection.
things. Yeah,
Yes, yes,
sugar is definitely one of the worst. One of the worst, from my own perspective and my own experience. Um, it is, it's it's sort of like a dirty fuel. So I mean, it's like burning coal, or some, in that sort of respect. It's like there are other energies we can use to energize our body, like carbohydrates and sugars are detrimental. I won't go too heavy into it because it's I think in time it's going to be proven, and it is being proven now, with the ketogenic diet and things. I follow a ketogenic diet.
Okay.
But and it's quite a strict ketogenic diet as well. I don't eat much red meat either, so it's quite limited. But yes, sugars are detrimental. Again, it's a distraction for the body. We're overworking the liver and things, glucose, and again, it's to do with evolution. I think our bodies. We all used to be out in the field every day, digging and working in the mines, in the slate quarries, hunting. Now, as our lives are becoming less active, I think we don't need as much glucose, as much heavy input. So we're not changing our diet as our lifestyle is changing. But yeah,
Yeah.
I agree
Yeah,
with
I
you. It's
agree.
a massive distraction.
I told you once in one of our talks, that um, when I was living in Egypt, I went through a huge um, upgrade restoration of my reticular system, of my nervous system at every scale. And I would just be sleeping 2 hours. Nowadays, I need really, like, let's say 4 hours sleep, and I'm good to go. I would only eat once a day. I keep on eating once a day. I am fully energized, and it's not generating any like, let's say, a decrease in my cognitive thinking or in, like, overall mental ability. And I believe, also based on my experience, that all of these things are attainable. We just need to be where we need to be, and with who we need to be, and doing what we need to be, generating that coherent field, and everything will start um, enabling, at a very rapid scale,
Yeah, fasting,
opportunities.
yeah, fasting was a large part of all of the different ascetic traditions, and they did it, and they said to connect to God. So, and which way are we going to look at that? I look at it from a physiological and scientific perspective. They were increasing their nervous system, to gain access to their sensitive, insights. They were becoming more sensitized to their environment, getting better insights from their dreams and from their daily sort of interactions with the natural world, and opening their mind, so to speak. So yeah, fasting, I think, is an important thing. And if people are just starting out, what I would say is don't go extreme. Just slowly cut little things out, one at a
Exactly.
time. Don't punish yourself too
Exactly.
much. Take your time. Make
Exactly.
it a long term change in your life. I'm going to cut this out. Your body will start to tell you, especially as you grow older, what your body doesn't want. And you can slowly cut
Exactly.
that out. And I think it's important to choose sensitivity. Don't choose, I'd rather have that than not have the sensitivity. I'd rather have this type of food, or do this, or still go out and do that. Choose sensitivity. It's difficult for people to get back in touch with themselves, I think, and back in touch with their nervous systems and things. But I think, yeah,
Yeah.
it's, yeah,
I was remembering, I have the image, but it is there is it's Horus and Set, and then they are pulling it from another side and creating a knot in what looks like like a pole, and in the
yeah,
bottom, sort of heart. That's the vertebral column, and they are pointing out at a very precise vertebra, that if you know how to bend your energy, because it's actually interconnected, it's at the level of the navel. So
yeah.
it's interconnecting the black hole of the navel with that, let's say, barrier, you know
It's
in the flesh, and then creating a very specific vortex in which you're capable. When I say bend energy or torsion energy, is actually activating dormant capability, because that's what bending and torsioning mostly create, ripples, and those ripples are activating dormant genes. And if we say that, most of our RNA was considered junk DNA, and that's where, like, the pulp, it's like the pure gold of our DNA, because there reside all the dormant genes. It's like, then it's about simple bending our energy in any way, how David has said, with ancient practices, even going into a hot, super hot as well, or super cold bathtub. It's going to stimulate your heart frequency at such a scale that you will have to bend the energy yourself to allow your mind to go into another level and go beyond the limited thinking of you're going to die.
Yes,
So
I think again, and again, if you're going to do these things, approach it very slowly, carefully, research it first, and change your life habits first. So change your diet and things, and approach these things with a sense of balance. But it's interesting, you mentioned that symbol of Horus and Set, with I think they're using like the papyri flower and the lotus flower to put, and it looks like a spinal column. I can't remember the name of the actual thing now, but I do remember, and I have heard it referred to as the spinal column. I've also heard it referred to as the lungs, but you relate it to,
do you
because
want me to show it?
Sorry?
Do you want me to show it? Because I have it here, actually.
Yeah, if you could, yeah. And the place where they are attached to with their rope, it is sort of in line with like the navel. That's it. So some people relate it to the breath and to the lungs. Other people relate it to the spinal column, and it's the papyri flower and the lotus flower coming in. And I'm glad you mentioned that it's in line with the navel, because that is an energetic center which is important in Taoist traditions and the Vedic traditions. So in the Taoist energy work traditions, it's called the Ming Men, or the door of life. And once you've woken up your nervous system, it becomes quite important, because you can access the lower lumbar vertebrae I think it's between lumbar 2 and 3. And then that is where the spinal cord splits into the cauda equina, or the sacral plexus nerve bundle. So yeah, all of those allegories fit. It's also good to have a think about what Horus and Set represent. So Horus represents our higher nature, like I said, the awakened nervous system, where Set, in this physiological and sort of psychological approach, what he represents is our instincts, our base instincts. So it's a combination of our physical instincts and our sort of higher self. In a way, it's a battle between those things to balance them, to enable the us to connect with the Horus principle, us to enhance our nervous system, the Great Awakening, the opening of the inner eye, becoming the pharaoh of our own land, all of these things.
And actually, I have another one for you. I said that we wouldn't be sharing images, but it's really perhaps complex for people to visualize. Anyway, you see above the cartouche, at the hand and the Heka, which is the mastery of the plasma body.
Right, that's the car, isn't it?
Which is the car? Yeah, Heka. No, that's Heka. Heka is let's say the nether that they relate to the plasma mastery, like knowing how to, because the Ka, precisely, it's that plasma vital force, coming of the spirit and bringing the Ba and the Ra, I mean the Ba and the Ka together, Baraka. So, and the Heper is showing levity, because the scarabs levitate, they don't fly, they levitate, due to the frequency that they emit in their wings. So it's the levity of the plasma, because here you have the plasma orb above, which is the attain. So here we are capable to activate our 9 toruses and therefore activate our plasma body. How? The communion of the brain and the heart, meaning a heart set, but heart, and I will show you now.
Yeah, that's really interesting. You showed that. I didn't realize that cartouche was Heka.
Look, I want to show now this one as well. You see here the aorta, which has the shape of 2 things, which is the face of Set, you see? So it's connecting all the veins and plumping the heart. So that's why it's a big mastery of going that instinct to go to the heart expansion is the master, because this is the one measuring the level of the heart expansion. So about the communion of both the heart and the brain, and this being, as I was saying, the one that is let's say not measuring but leveling the amount of blood that will be pumped through our veins, because it's actually a vortex, the heart vortex. So, and for me, in that other representation, what is that plasma body through the power of the navel, bending the navel and then creating 9 toruses. But it's not only about the navel, it's also about the heart, and it's also about the brain, because they come together as one. The black hole in the brain, the black hole and the black hole in the navel sucked, and it's even more. It has many points of that. I'm just summarizing it.
Yeah, it's a wonderful correlation. I didn't know that cartouche represented Heka, so that's really interesting to know. And I never thought of the artery of the heart either looking like Set, because obviously the correlation between the brain and the heart is important energetically as well, from a physiological perspective, and from a anatomical or sort of bioelectrical perspective. The joining of the heart and the brain energies. When you're practicing certain energy work traditions and you're awakening up the nervous system, these connections become far more apparent and far more important. I mean, the Taoists speak of it. You have the Jing energy, the Qi energy, and the Shen. So the Shen is the brain, the Qi is the heart, and the Jing is the hips. So, and it's about the balancing and the coming together of these energies and the raising of these energies to connect up to the higher powers again, same as the car, same as the Buddhists practice to release the body, the spirit body at death. That's what it's all about, enhancing the nervous system and enabling a better connection to our higher selves, to the higher powers. And that's from the ancients' perspective.
What advice would you give to people that want to really commit to their nervous system and become their best friend, and
I
enabling
would
it to expand its full potential.
I would say to approach things slowly, and to make a plan, to make definite decisions in their mind, what they're going to slowly reduce in their life, to enable to increase other practices. So diet is an easy one. So slow down, start changing their diet, start changing their environment, start making time for themselves. It might be difficult at first. Some people may be far along on this journey, which I expect most of your viewers probably are. And so for them, I would say to concentrate on, from a male perspective, semen retention, or no fap, I think now it's called, is important. So you're conserving your energy. After you've had children, I would like to stress that point, that I think it's important to have children now more than ever. But yeah, semen retention, energy retention, sexual alchemy, inner alchemy is very important to enhance and increase the nervous system. And I go into this in more depth in my videos and writing. But doing that, so again, and it's meditation. If we just look back at the ancients and what they were doing, meditation, some solitude, self-isolation, some quiet time, concentrate on getting your sleep process right. So approaching sleep as sort of a really important part of your daily routine. Slowing things down. Stop eating like 5 or 6 hours before sleep. No drinking caffeine, no nibbling, no snacks, anything before sleep. Try and bring your sleep back early as well, if you can. I know different people are at different points in their lives. So again, everyone is different, and do what you can. Again, change your diet, energy work traditions, Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga. All of these things are really important as well. And I would also advise people to look into their own traditions and their own cultures and look for subtle hints and allegories and metaphors in those traditions. And if you're struggling, go to my channel and have a look. You may find something there. And I have a lot more to release in the future, which will give some sort of perhaps guidance in this direction. So the allegories in the mythologies and legends of our ancient ancestors, they sort of include a lot of information which we can relate to these practices and to the awakening of our own nervous system. So again, it's about a holistic approach. It's about approaching things from a holistic mindset and just really narrowing down our outward inputs, narrowing and decreasing our distractions, and really becoming masters of our own energy. And I think this is what the ancients were alluding to in a lot of their symbolism, allegories, and metaphors that they sort of hid within the mythologies and legends of our past.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Well, I think we will be wrapping up for this time. We will definitely have a new encounter with David. As I was saying in the beginning of this video, we love to decode, and we are very passionate about it. So we have many information to share. If you are also a decoder, or you are just very interested in information, you can like David's YouTube channel, The Owen Spring, and also his Facebook. As I was saying, I will have all the description below this video. And you can also visit my YouTube channel, my website, and my Facebook. And yeah, we cover important topics about how everything comes together, how what we know is the past is actually the future, and we are now in this present moment come to realize it, that we ourselves left those codes written, as a diagram, as a manual. And perhaps at some point, due to the amnesia, we started to explore many forms of interpreting those hieroglyphs, those glyphs, those templates, those whatever, many forms of writing by the ancient civilizations, and to simplify it and see that within all that mythology, within all their cosmology, they were pointing to within. It is from deep within that create reality. And the more that because David said, well, he's many important things. Right now, he just mentioned about connecting to one's own roots. And I do believe that's super important because it's honoring the place where we chose to live in. And for a reason, we chose it. So bringing alive that ancient knowledge is also, as I believe and as I experience it, part of the mission that why we're here for, to bring alive the fundamentals, the fundamental teachings, and what is really imperant for us to thrive as a humanity. So having said this, Dave, is there anything else you want to say?
No, only that you haven't said that if people, it's important that people do learn about their own culture and traditions and their own ways, so then that we can all come together at a later date and share our findings, and that will help, I believe, take humanity forward together by protecting and looking after our own cultures, histories, and traditions. So then we can come together at a later time and find the connections between them all.
Thank you. Thank you, my friend. And looking forward to have you again. And thank you, everyone, for you joining us. Thank you for your comments, for all your comments. There are a lot of highs and gratitude. So, stay for our transmission with David. And for now, it's until next time. And thank you. Thank you all. HUNUH.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dave.